This is the portrait of the world's most famous spirit. Among the countless sensational hauntings based on word of mouth or unexplainable phenomena, this is a much more tangible story. It was witnessed firsthand by many people and even captured in the famous photograph, The Brown Lady. Before we get to this chilling story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support is a great motivation for us to create our next videos. Raynham Hall, one of the world's most famous unsolved hauntings, yet different from many other documented paranormal events. This location has a much more compelling piece of evidence. The most famous, most debated, and most haunting ghost photograph of all time. The portrait of the Brown Lady at Raynham Hall. Taken in 1936 by photographers from the prestigious Country Life magazine, this photograph shows a faint, shrouded figure serenely descending the mansion's main staircase. It is not a streak of light or a dark shadow, but the distinct form of a woman, believed to be the ghost of Lady Dorothy Walpole, an 18th century mistress of the manor. This isn't just a story about a photograph. It's a story of a family tragedy, of terrifying encounters spanning centuries, and of a fateful moment when the visible and invisible worlds seem to intersect through the lens of a camera. The Brown Lady is believed to be the spirit of Lady Dorothy Walpole, 1686 to 1726. She was no ordinary person. She was the sister of Sir Robert Walpole, who is considered to be the first Prime Minister of Great Britain. Her life became tied to Raynham Hall when she married its owner, Charles Townshend, 2nd Viscount Townshend, a powerful politician but one notorious for his violent and cruel temper. Their marriage was said to be deeply unhappy. There are different stories about Dorothy's tragedy. One version tells that Charles Townshend discovered his wife was having an affair with the notorious rake Lord Wharton. In a fit of rage, he punished her in the cruelest way possible. Not with death, but with imprisonment. He locked Dorothy away within the rooms of Raynham Hall, forbidding her from seeing anyone, including her own children. Another version suggests it was her extravagant spending habits that angered the Viscount. Whatever the reason, the story ends in tragedy. Dorothy Walpole officially died of smallpox in 1726 and was buried. However, a persistent and more chilling rumor suggests that her funeral was a sham. It's believed that Dorothy did not die that year but was secretly imprisoned by her husband in a remote corner of the mansion until she passed away years later in solitude and despair. This tragedy of a life imprisoned and a mysterious death is believed to be the reason Dorothy's spirit has remained at Raynham Hall, wandering the corridors where she was once confined, wearing the brown brocade dress that has become her symbol. Raynham Hall's haunted reputation did not begin with the 1936 photograph. It had been established more than a century earlier with terrifying accounts from credible witnesses. The first documented account comes from a Christmas gathering at the hall in 1835. A guest, Colonel Loftus, and a friend named Hawkins recounted seeing a woman in an old-fashioned brown dress as they were heading to their bedrooms. The following night, Colonel Loftus once again encountered the ghost. This time he was haunted by a horrifying detail. Though the ghost's face was glowing, her eye sockets were empty and dark. This experience was so frightening that some staff members permanently left Raynham Hall after hearing the story. But the most dramatic encounter must be the story of Captain Frederick Marryat in 1836. Marryat was a famous novelist, a friend of Charles Dickens, and a courageous man not easily convinced of ghost stories. He believed the hauntings were merely tales fabricated by local smugglers to scare people away from the area. To prove his theory, he requested to sleep in the most haunted room of the hall, with a loaded pistol under his pillow. His daughter, Florence Marryat, later recounted her father's terrifying experience in detail. For the first 2 nights, nothing happened. On the third night, as he was getting ready for bed, two of the host's young nephews knocked on his door and asked him to come to their room to see a new gun. As it was late, Marriott was only in his shirt and trousers, but he grabbed his pistol, joking, "In case we meet the brown lady." As the three men returned down the dark corridor, they saw the light of a lamp approaching them. Thinking it was one of the ladies of the house and feeling uncomfortable in his attire, Marriott and his two friends slipped behind one of the double doors to wait for her to pass. Through the crack in the door, Marriott watched the figure approach. He recognized her as the exact image from the portrait of the brown lady. The figure stopped right in front of the door where he was hiding, holding the lamp, and grinned in a malicious and diabolical manner at him. This act enraged Marriott, a man of courage. He leapt out from his hiding place, aimed his pistol directly at the ghost's face, and pulled the trigger. The figure vanished instantly. The bullet passed through the space where the ghost had stood, went through the outer door of the room across the hall, and lodged itself in the inner panel. After that night, Captain Marriott never again attempted to interfere with the Brown Lady of Raynham. The sightings continued. In 1926, the son of the then mistress of the house and his friend also claimed to have seen the ghost on the staircase, and strangely, they could see the stairs right through her form. These stories firmly cemented Raynham Hall's reputation, setting the perfect stage for the event that was about to unfold. On September 19, 1936, Destiny arranged an appointment at Raynham Hall. Country Life magazine had sent two photographers, Captain Hubert C. Provand and his assistant Indra Shira, to photograph the architecture of the mansion for an article. They had nearly finished their work. Around 4 p.m., they were preparing to take the final shot of the hall's magnificent oak staircase. Provand was behind the camera, setting up for an exposure shot, while Shira stood by, ready to assist with the flash. In that quiet moment, as everything was ready, Shira suddenly saw something. An ethereal, veiled form was slowly descending the stairs. It was not a living person. In shock, Shira yelled, "Quick, quick, there's something there, it's on the stairs!" Provand, initially skeptical, dismissed it and said not to be silly, there was nothing there. But Shira insisted. He could see the faint shape moving. While Provand was still confused, Shira quickly removed the lens cap. Meanwhile, Provand, though he saw nothing, pressed the shutter, partly due to his assistant's urgency. After taking the picture, Provand asked Shira, "What was all that fuss about?" Shira explained what he had seen. Provand still didn't believe him, but when the film was developed, all his skepticism vanished. Appearing on the negative was the exact image Shira had described, a faint, transparent form of a woman descending the staircase. The photograph was subsequently published in Country Life magazine and immediately caused a sensation. The Brown Lady photograph became a global phenomenon, one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the existence of ghosts ever recorded. However, it also immediately faced criticism and skepticism. Many experts argued it was just a technical trick, such as a double exposure, two images superimposed on each other, or even a grease smudge on the lens. But supporters countered, pointing out that experts had examined the original negative and found no signs of tampering or fakery. To better understand the context of the photograph, we need to look at the mistress of Raynham Hall at the time. Gladys, Dowager Marchioness Townshend. Raynham Hall, though once glorious in the 18th century, had fallen on hard times in the late 19th century, due to an agricultural depression and the spendthrift habits of its owners. When the Dowager Marchioness Gladys took over the hall after her husband's death in 1921, she faced the daunting task of restoring the dilapidated estate. Gladys herself was a believer in ghosts. Coincidentally, less than a year before the famous photograph was taken, she had published a book titled True Ghost Stories, in which the story of Raynham Hall and the Brown Lady took center stage. For the struggling owners of old manors, a haunted history was a way to maintain a connection to an illustrious past and attract public attention. The book, along with the country life photograph that followed, became an unconventional but incredibly successful publicity stunt, helping to put Raynham Hall back on the cultural map. Today, the brown lady photograph remains one of the most mysterious and debated images in the history of photography. Raynham Hall today seems to want to distance itself from its haunted reputation, focusing instead on its architectural wonders. But whether they like it or not, the spirit of Lady Dorothy Walpole, through a single photograph, has forever etched Raynham Hall's name into the history of the supernatural. This isn't a story that begins with unsolved mysteries. The Amityville house is the clearest testament to one of the most sensational supernatural cases in American history, the inspiration for nearly 20 hit horror films over several decades. Located at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York, this beautiful Dutch colonial home isn't just about ghosts. It originates from a bloody tragedy, a horrifying mass murder. In the early morning hours of November 13, 1974, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. walked through the halls of the house with a .35 caliber Marlin rifle and one by one shot and killed 6 members of his family as they slept. The victims included his parents, Ronald DeFeo Sr. and Louise DeFeo, along with his 4 younger siblings, Dawn, 18, Allison, 13, Mark, 12, and John Matthew, 9. Around 6:30 that evening, DeFeo Jr. ran into a nearby bar, Henry's, shouting frantically, "You got to help me, I think my mother and father are shot." When police arrived at the house, they discovered a horrific scene. All 6 victims were found dead in their beds, lying on their stomachs with no signs of a struggle or of being drugged. Strangely, no neighbors had reported hearing gunshots. Only the DeFeo's dog was heard barking incessantly. During the investigation, DeFeo Jr. changed his story multiple times, from claiming he was at the bar at the time of the murders to blaming a mob hitman. Eventually, he confessed to having single-handedly shot and killed his entire family. During his trial, DeFeo Jr. and his lawyer, William Weber, attempted an insanity defense. DeFeo Jr. claimed that he had heard voices in his head, the voices of his family plotting against him, urging him to kill them. This testimony planted the first seed of the Amityville haunted legend. The idea that evil spirits within the house had driven DeFeo Jr. to murder. However, prosecutors argued that DeFeo Jr. was simply a drug addict who was fully aware of his actions and had a history of violence towards his abusive father. Ultimately, DeFeo Jr. was convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder in 1975 and sentenced to 6 concurrent terms of 25 years to life. He remained in prison until his death in 2021. The bloody tragedy was over, but it left behind a dark stain, a history of violence that soaked into the walls of the house, awaiting its next owners. 1 year after the massacre, in December 1975, the Lutz family bought the house for the bargain price of $80,000. George and Kathy Lutz were a newlywed couple, along with Kathy's 3 children from a previous marriage: Daniel, Christopher, and Missy. They believed this would be their dream home to build a happy family. But their dream quickly turned into a nightmare. They would only stay there for 28 days before fleeing in terror, leaving all of their possessions behind. According to the Lutz family's account, the paranormal phenomena began on the very first day they moved in. As they were unpacking, a Catholic priest, later identified as Father Ralph Pecoraro, came to bless the house at Kathy's request. As the priest was sprinkling holy water in an upstairs room, he heard a deep, masculine voice command, "Get out!" Over the next 28 days, the Lutz family faced a series of escalating, terrifying events. The house was often filled with foul, unexplained odors. Many areas of the house became unusually cold. Mysterious green slime was said to ooze from the walls and keyholes. Swarms of flies suddenly appeared in the house, a phenomenon paranormal investigators often associate with demonic entities. Doors and windows would slam shut on their own. Objects, including knives, would fly through the air. Toilets turned black on the inside. George Lutz seemed to be the most heavily affected. He became irritable and distant. More frighteningly, he would wake up at 3:15 a.m. every night, the exact time of the DeFeo family murders. Kathy claimed to have levitated above her bed while sleeping and later woke up with painful welts on her chest. The children also reported being levitated from their beds. The youngest daughter, Missy, began talking to an imaginary friend named Jody, who was described as a pig-like creature with glowing red eyes. George and his son Daniel also reported seeing a pig-like creature with red eyes staring at them from a window. On the night of January 14, 1976, after a horrifying night that they refused to describe in detail, the Lutz family reached their breaking point. They fled the house, leaving everything behind, and never returned. The Lutz family's story quickly captured public attention, especially after Jay Anson's book, The Amityville Horror, was published in 1977, based on 45 hours of the family's recorded interviews. The case also drew the involvement of the most famous paranormal investigators of the time, Ed and Lorraine Warren. After conducting an overnight investigation at the house, the Warrens corroborated the Lutz's story. Ed Warren stated that this was no ordinary haunted house, and on a scale of 1 to 10, Amityville was a 10. It was during this investigation that a famous photograph was taken, allegedly capturing the image of a ghostly boy with glowing eyes known as the Amityville Ghost Boy. However, from the very beginning, the story was met with intense skepticism. Many believed the Lutz family fabricated the story to make money from book and movie deals, especially since they were in financial trouble. Despite the accusations, George and Kathy Lutz maintained their story was true until the end of their lives. They even passed a polygraph test to prove their truthfulness. Their son, Daniel Lutz, in a 2013 documentary, still appeared deeply traumatized by what happened, saying the house had ruined his life and that he still has nightmares about it. After the Lutz family left, the house was sold to various other owners. The Cromartie family, who purchased the house in 1977, had to change the address from 112 to 108 Ocean Avenue to deter curious tourists. They and all subsequent owners have reported that no supernatural phenomena have occurred. The house is now just an ordinary home, albeit one with a dark past. If you enjoy true horror stories, like and subscribe to the channel. We're always happy to create new videos for you. Hidden beneath this homestead's beautiful exterior lies a dark and bloody history, filled with countless tortured souls. Each spirit tells its own tragic story. The mistress, Mrs. Crawley, who imprisoned herself for 23 years and now rules the homestead forever as a tyrannical ghost, and the souls of children, one burned alive, another chained up for 30 years. This is Australia's most famous haunted homestead, Monte Cristo. Make sure you've liked and subscribed to the channel before we continue exploring this terrifying homestead. Nestled in the peaceful countryside of New South Wales, Australia, lies a beautiful Victorian homestead named Monte Cristo. With its elegant facade, wrought iron balconies, and lush gardens, it looks like a happy place, a symbol of success and fortune. But don't let its appearance deceive you. Behind its closed doors, in its silent hallways and rooms covered in the dust of time, lies a bloody history, an unending series of tragedies, and a long list of souls who cannot find peace. This is not just a haunted house. It has been named the most haunted house in Australia. It's a story that not only awakens a deep sense of fear, but also a sadness for the tragic fate of the tormented souls within. The story of Monte Cristo is not about one or two ghosts, but about an entire community of spirits trapped by pain, violence, and tragedy. From the tyrannical mistress who still rules the house after her death, to the maids who met tragic ends, and the innocent children whose lives were unjustly taken. The story of Monte Cristo begins with a man named Christopher William Crawley, 1841-1910. He was a farmer who purchased 2 parcels of land on a hill overlooking the small town of Junay, with the dream of building an estate for his family. The first few years were incredibly difficult. The Crawley family, including Christopher, his wife Elizabeth, and their 7 children, lived in a simple slab hut while he struggled to make ends meet. But Christopher's fortunes changed dramatically in 1878 when the Great Southern Railway line was completed and ran through Junay. Seeing a golden opportunity, he scraped together all the money he could to buy a license and build the railway hotel directly opposite the soon-to-be open station. It was an incredibly smart move. The small town quickly grew thanks to travelers and agricultural trade, and Christopher Crawley became exceedingly wealthy, establishing himself as one of the town's founders and richest men. With his newfound wealth and social status in 1885, he commissioned the construction of a magnificent 2-story Victorian homestead, naming it Monte Cristo. It was the ultimate symbol of the family's standing, dominating the town's landscape from its hilltop perch. The Crawley family frequently hosted lavish balls and tennis and golf tournaments, becoming the center of the region's high society. However, behind this glamorous facade, tragedy began to creep in. Christopher Crawley died at his own homestead on December 14, 1910. The cause of death was a combination of heart failure and blood poisoning, caused by a carbuncle on his neck that became infected from rubbing against his starched shirt collars. Her husband's death dealt a severe blow to Mrs. Elizabeth Crawley. Unable to cope with the loss, she confined herself to the house. For the remaining 23 years of her life, she left Monte Cristo only twice. She spent most of her time in an attic room she had converted into a small chapel, living like a recluse until her death at the age of 92 on August 12, 1933, due to a ruptured appendix. It is said that Elizabeth was a stern woman who ruled her home with an iron fist and treated her servants very poorly. It is her powerful and somewhat vindictive spirit that is believed to be one of the most prominent ghosts still haunting Monte Cristo today. The Crawley family's tragedy did not end with the deaths of its master and mistress. During the time they lived there, the Monte Cristo homestead became the stage for a series of tragic deaths and horrifying events, with each story adding another unfortunate soul to the house's roster of ghosts. It is rumored that Mr. Crawley impregnated 2 of his maids. One of them, perhaps out of shame and despair, took her own life by jumping from the 2nd-story balcony. She died instantly upon hitting the stairs below. Today it is said that her spirit still haunts the veranda area, and a permanent bleach stain on the stairs, where her blood was scrubbed away, is still clearly visible. Many visitors have seen the figure of a woman on the balcony and have heard footsteps in the middle of the night. A stable boy named Morris met a horrific end in the coach house. One day he wasn't feeling well and decided to take the day off, lying down on his straw mattress. The master, presumably Mr. Crawley, not believing he was sick and thinking he was just being lazy, decided to teach him a lesson. He set the straw mattress on fire, thinking Morris would jump up in a panic and get to work. But the boy was too ill to get up. He was burned to death in his own bed. To this day, many people still hear the boy's terrifying screams coming from the coach house. The second maid, who became pregnant by Mr. Crawley, gave birth to a baby boy named Harold. As a young child, Harold was involved in a terrible carriage accident on the homestead grounds, which left him with a severe head injury and permanently disabled. Due to his brain trauma, Harold became aggressive and uncontrollable. Instead of being cared for, the poor boy was chained up in the coach house, some sources say in the dairy or chained to his mother's bed, for over 30 years. He would scream and howl all day, leading the village children to believe a monster was trapped there, and they would often dare each other to go and taunt him. Eventually, authorities discovered the adult Harold. Some accounts say he was found chained next to his mother's dead body and took him to a mental asylum, where he died shortly after. Harold's spirit is said to still haunt the homestead, and visitors often hear the ghastly rattling of his chains. Tragedy did not spare even the youngest members of the family. The Crawleys' granddaughter, baby Ethel, died in 1917 when she was just 10 months old. The nanny accidentally dropped her down the stairs. However, the nanny insisted that she was pushed by an unseen force, or that something had snatched the baby from her arms. Today, this staircase is one of the most active paranormal hotspots in the house. Many visitors, especially children, become irritable and upset when near it. Some even claim to feel as if someone is pushing them in the back, or feel a small, ice-cold hand suddenly slip into theirs as they go upstairs. Even after the Crawley family had left, the violence continued. In 1960, some sources say 1961, a caretaker named Jack Simpson was shot and killed on the front porch by a young man. The killer had allegedly watched Alfred Hitchcock's horror film Psycho 3 times in a row before committing the crime. He even used chalk to scrawl the words, "Die Jack, ha ha," on the dairy door, a marking that is said to still be visible today. After the last member of the Crawley family departed in 1948, Monte Cristo was abandoned for over a decade, left to be vandalized and forgotten. But its spirits remained, waiting for new owners to arrive and write the next chapter of its horrifying story. In 1963, the Monte Cristo homestead, by then a dilapidated shadow of its former glory, was purchased by a couple named Reginald and Olive Ryan for just $1,000. They spent years carefully and patiently restoring the house, bringing it back to its former grandeur. But from the very first moment, they knew they were not alone. Their first strange experience happened on the very first day they arrived to take possession of the house. As their car made its way up the hill, they were astonished to see the entire homestead lit up, as if a grand party was waiting for them inside. But as they reached the front door, all the lights suddenly went out. What made it even stranger was that at the time, the house had no electricity at all. Their pets also sensed that something was wrong. Both the Ryan family's dog and cat adamantly refused to enter the house, even running away from it. And the animal tragedies didn't stop there. One night, the Ryan family returned home to find all of their chickens in the coop had been mysteriously strangled. Their pet parrot was also found choked to death in its cage. More horrifically, an entire litter of kittens they were raising in the breakfast room was brutally killed. The family cat was even found on the kitchen floor, skinned and disemboweled, while all the doors had been locked. It seemed the spirits of Monte Cristo had a deep hatred for animals. As the Ryan family settled in and raised their 5 children in the homestead, paranormal experiences became a part of their daily lives. Mrs. Olive often heard her name being called when no one was there. She also heard footsteps on the balcony when she was alone. At least once, she felt a hand on her shoulder, which she believed was Mrs. Elizabeth Crawley trying to communicate. Her children had similar experiences. They all saw figures in period clothing wandering the house and felt ice-cold hands touching them. Instead of fleeing, the Ryan family decided to confront their uninvited guests. They turned Monte Cristo into a museum and tourist attraction, opening it to the public and hosting famous ghost tours. Today, Olive Ryan still lives in the homestead with her son Lawrence, who runs the ghost tours. Visitors from all over the world flock here to experience the terror of Australia's most haunted house, and very few are disappointed. A wide range of supernatural phenomena continues to be reported. The spirit of Elizabeth Crawley is said to still rule the house. She allegedly judges the guests who visit. If she dislikes someone, she will make them feel a bone-chilling cold or touch them with an icy hand. Visitors often hear disembodied whispers, the rattling of chains and screams. Many photographs taken inside the house show orbs of light and unexplainable mists. Feelings of nausea and overwhelming sadness are very common. Some people have even fainted during tours. The sensation of being pushed on the stairs is still frequently reported. Brave guests who stay overnight tell of something unseen touching their feet or feeling a heavy pressure on their chests as if someone is sitting on them. Lawrence Ryan, who grew up with the ghosts, believes that skeptics are the ones most likely to experience phenomena. Whether the legends about the Crawley family can be verified or not, the first-hand experiences of the Ryan family over the past 60 years and the countless accounts from visitors have firmly cemented the reputation of the Monte Cristo homestead. It stands there on the hill, a beautiful Victorian structure carrying within it a dark history that can never be erased. It is a chilling reminder that some houses are built not just with bricks and mortar, but with pain, violence, and souls that can never find their rest.